Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming to my presentation today. My name is Denannisa Aminie Nurfathin from Universitas Siliwangi. Today, I'd like to talk to you about sexuality education from an Islamic perspective. Now, let me begin by definition of sexuality education. Secondly, explaining about Islamic sexuality education. And finally, I would like to finish by talking about aims of Islamic sexuality education. Before talking about definition, so how about sexuality education in Indonesia? In fact, education about sexual health is still considered taboo by some Indonesians. Now, let's look at this slide. Research conducted by Durex Indonesia on sexual and reproductive health shows that 84% of adolescents aged 12 to 17 years have not received sex education. According to the research, sexual education was introduced at the age of 14 to 18 years. In fact, experts say sexual education does not need to wait for children to enter puberty and can be done from an early age. So what is sexual education? So that sexual education is important to do from an early age. And how does Islam view it? First, let's talk about the definition. Sexuality education is a broad term and has different meanings for different people and organizations. Fabric says that sexual education is an educational process involving rigorous knowledge about biological, sexual, and reproductive function, correct attitudes towards personal hygiene, and reasonable behavior related to sexual activity. Abdul Tawab, 1988. The concept of sex education was labeled as too narrow in its perspective as it focuses mainly on the physical aspect of sexual and reproductive knowledge, like human sexual anatomy, sexual reproduction, sexual intercourse, and other aspects of human sexual behavior. We can see in this slide UNESCO's 2018 Comprehensive Sexuality Education or CSE curriculum addresses all aspects related to sexuality ranging from values, rights, and culture to skills for health and well-being. So, sexual education does not only discuss about sex, so it's considered taboo by society. In this section, we can see the above definition and characteristic of sexual education are context-based in secular democratic societies. Although sexual education is comprehensive in its nature and process, it is nonetheless incomplete from an Islamic perspective. The sexuality education prevalent in Western education initiatives are devoid of the values and morality associated with sexual dysfunction and divisions and the institution of marriage. So that's why it is very necessary to have sexual education based on the teaching of Islam. What about it in Islam? Islamic sexuality education or Islamic relationship and sex education is implemented within the larger context of Islamic values and principles. And its definition, Islamic sexuality education means imparting a specific knowledge of sexuality and sexual health according to Islamic values and principles. And the aim is teaching Muslims the moral character of Islam and its rulings. This is the abstinence approach to sexuality education based on the Islamic paradigm. Let us continue to the next slide. In this slide, there are some of the most important aims of sexuality education and training of Muslim youth include: first, understand the physical, emotional, and psychological change in the body occurring due to puberty. Second is have an awareness of the commandments of Sharia due to the onset of nocturnal emission and menstruation. And then have an awareness of different halal, permissible, and haram forbidden acts, for example, zina and masturbation. After that, have knowledge and understanding about the obligation, duties, and rights of each other as spouses. And finally, is prepare us to become good Muslim citizens who avoid all the forbidden sexual behaviors and lead a pious and happy family life. And then, who should provide the sexual education to the child? Of course, parents have an important role and teacher in school. And we cannot carelessly provide sexual education to children. So that is all about my presentation. If anyone has any question, I'll be pleased to answer them.
Can you explain to me how to teach sexuality education in Islam?
Okay, thank you for your questions about how to teach sexual education in Islam. According to Instagram of Tawlebi, who educated about sexuality education in Islam, there are 5 ways. First is if you are teacher, ask for parents' consent and don't be nervous. Secondly, use objective and clear terms and do not use graphic materials or explicit videos. And then teach age appropriate contents and do not offer information more than required. And after that, separate students by sex, don't limit contents to sex-relevant subjects, and finally, talk by some sex teachers and don't make a joke of it. Thank you so much for your great attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.